Hi everyone, this is Penny. Today we're going to work on my Megan-Nielsen Tania skirt for Sew My Style. So as I mentioned before, I have printed this out. It was a lot of pages, so that's why I'm doing view B. And all I have to do is cut around my size. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of fitting. Just measure for a skirt, I'm going to measure my waist and I'm going to measure my hip. And it's a full skirt, so really the hip is going to be fine. I just need to measure my waist and define that a little bit more to this pattern. So I've got a back and I print, let's see, I cut two of the back and it has a grain line. Here's the grain line, so my pattern will go this way along with the grain of the fabric. So I'll have to stretch it out. I may even have to do this in the dining room because it's a little bigger table, because you can see it's kind of hanging off. But maybe after I cut my size, it might be a little different. So we'll see. So this is the back piece. And I'll just put a light iron on it to flatten all this out. Here's the front, and I will cut two with the front. Same thing, the grain line, we'll turn it around. So the grain line goes parallel to the selvage. So find the selvage, and that line is your grain line, and that's what I will line this up with. So you can see I've pieced all of my pages together. It takes, I don't know, maybe a half hour. You don't have a lot there invested. And then I have, this is a huge pocket. So here's a pocket facing, and I will again put the grain line arrow going the same direction, just down the bolt of fabric. And I cut, let's see how many do I cut of that one? Two. And then this is the pocket bag that I will cut two of. So gosh, these pockets, this is gonna be wonderful. Who doesn't love a good pocket? And then I have the waistband front. And this is where I'll probably cut it, maybe just I'll look at the pattern instructions and see if, you know, there's any overlay. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure this out, but we'll figure it out together. And then here's the waistband back. So again, you can see this is the most fitted piece of this puzzle, and that's what I want to focus on the most, because the rest will flow and it'll just be wonderful. And I just noticed, I guess I have a theme going on here. So join me and we will get started. All right, now I just wanted to go through the instructions for the Tania. I measured my waistline, and my waistline is 35. My hip runs 40. So I'm pretty much a box. So we're going to come through here and figure out what size to make. Let's see. And again, it's not the same as ready to wear. So I'm not as worried. I may even grade it down to a 12. Looks like my waist runs right at a 16. And you know, like most people, my waistline does vary just a bit, but it pretty much stays between 34 and 35. So I don't want this to be huge. So I'm going to go with a 16 waist. And I'm going to grade it down to a 12 hip. And I'll show you how to do that when I'm cutting out my fabric. So again, I'm making view B with 60-inch wide fabric. So looks like I'm going to use 3 out of my 6 yards that I have. So that should give me enough for the skirt. I'll allow 2 yards for the top, and then if I'm going to line, or I could do 1.5 yards. If I did 1.5 yards for the top and 1.5 yards for the lining. And I may not even need that much for the lining. I really don't think I will. I think I'll have enough. 6 yards would be perfect. So as you can see here, the waistline for a size 16, and I don't wear a size 16 in ready to wear. So I just want you to know that pattern sizes are just different. They just are. Ready to wear, I wear like a size 8 to a 10 in ready to wear. And so in a pattern, I'm wearing a size 16. And I remember, and pattern sizes haven't changed. Ready to wear does change, kind of. I think it just kind of makes you feel good with, everyone out there buying clothes. I don't know. There's some algorithm to it. But I remember when I was tiny, when I was 18 years old, I would make a size 8 when in reality I wore a size 4 in clothing back then. So, let's just go through this. I'm going to pull it back down. So I'm going to make view B, which is just really cute. Knee length culottes with full skirt. And again, I didn't make this one just because there were so many pages to print out. Let's see. So here's how we're going to cut it out. And I may or may not cut it out that way. I just kind of lay it on the fabric, but it does give you a guideline right here depending on if you have 60-inch wide fabric or 45. So it looks like it will work with 45. I was wondering about that. And then here's some other diagrams here. And then we're going to get started sewing. Let's see. It just gives you some ideas on pleats. Right side seam. Oh, I was expecting it to say step 1, step 2. So it does. It dives right in here where it says sew. And every indie designer is different. So it's a good idea to just take the time, look down through here and see what the designer had in mind, to construct the garment. So here we go. The construction of all views is exactly the same. However, for simplicity of illustration, all diagrams will show view A. Okay, that's fine. That's just a shorter version of what I'm doing. That's view A. Here's view B. And it's a culotte, so it's going to be, pant-like. It's going to have an inseam. So it looks like we do the pockets first. And then we do the pleat. That's what's going to make it full. And then the right side seam looks pretty basic, really. Waistband does have a zipper. Now this is going to be my first time of putting in an invisible zipper. So it says we recommend using an invisible zipper for aesthetics. And I think with the fabric I chose, I would agree. But you may use a different zipper insertion method if preferred. So that's going to be kind of fun to play around with. I'm going to take my time on that. And then we add the waistband onto the garment. We sew another the inseam for the legs. And then we'll go around and hem it. And oh my goodness, this should be pretty simple. Since my fabric is slippery though, I do want to take my time with it. And I'm going to probably use number 9 needle. I'm going to kind of play around between 9 and 11 or a 65 to 75 in metrics just to see. That's interesting. This is backwards. I always catch all those little things, and if there is a misspelling, I usually catch that too. Anyway, it does say light to medium weight fabrics, which I have with plenty of drape, and includes crepe de chine, cotton. I think cotton, it'd have to be a really soft cotton to work. Crepe, challis, lawn, rayon, linen. I tried to find linen. I guess it's not the season. I couldn't find any that I really liked. Lightweight wool. It'd have to be a really lightweight wool. Tinsel and chambray. Chambray would be really cute if you want to kind of go a real country western flair. So I have kind of it's just like almost like a satin. It's going to drape really, really nice. So follow along and we'll get started once we get this cut out, and then we will start on page, what is that, page 6. Okay, I have everything cut out. I have my patterns cut out anyway. Now I'm going to use my pattern to cut the fabric in these shapes. When you cut your paper, be sure you use paper scissors and not your fabric scissors. So next we'll use our fabric scissors, because if you cut anything besides fabric with your fabric scissors, you will dull them very easily, and then it's very frustrating to try to cut on here. So next step is to cut out the pattern, and then we can prepare our sewing machine and then get ready to sew the skirt. These are just little washers I found at Lowe's and Home Depot. All right, so now here we go. I'm gonna do this again. Yeah. Sometimes all you need is a new blade. There we go. So much better. Sometimes it's my angle gets a little skewed. So we can just come back and trim that off. Just get your fingers out of the way, because it is really sharp. So I'm going to do this with all the pattern pieces, and then we're going to be ready to sew. So I have all of my pattern pieces cut out. As you can see, I have the waistband front, I have 2 pieces here, and I have the waistband back, and I have 2 pieces here. I have the pocket facing with 2 pieces. Isn't that just such a nice big pocket? And then I have the pocket bag, and I have 2 cut out pieces of that. You'll notice I didn't use any lining. I just self-lined with the fabric that I already had. I didn't really find it necessary. It was already thin and flowy, and I had plenty. This is the front. So I'm turning this around so you can kind of see. I mark an F with the front. I did mark with a fabric pencil, not a Sharpie, this pleat line. And so it'll make sense when we start sewing. And then I have my notches just marked. I didn't snip them, I just marked them right here. So here's my front, and then here's my back piece. And you'll see I did the same thing again right here. So now we're ready to get the sewing machine all set up and prepped, and then we're going to get sewing. So now it's really important to get your sewing machine all set up. You want to get the right thread, you want to get the right presser foot, and the right needle. So for now, I'm going to switch out this thread, because the base color on this fabric is black. So I'm just going to go with just a simple black thread. And then I will switch out my serger as well. That takes a little bit longer. I already had a bobbin with black thread, so I don't have to wind that. So, let's see. I love these little boxes right here. These things really handy, so I need a larger one. every machine is different, so check your instructions on how to thread your machine. They're basically the same, but again, you know, it can be a little bit different. There we go. First thing I need to check on is my needle. So I really can't read that without pulling out my magnifying glass. So I do want to get a brand new needle. And so since this is, it's not a stretch, even though it has like 3% spandex, I'm going to try the sharpest needle I can find in here. Not a stretch needle, but just a universal. And here's one I think I'd like to try. It's a number 9. And then on my scrap, I'm going to do a couple stitches and see if that's what I like before I actually start sewing the skirt. Okay, so we're just going to pull one of these out, pop it in the machine. This really is, I think, the most important part of getting set up, is getting the right needle, just making sure your stitches look the way you want. Okay. Now we're going to put in our bobbin, because we don't want that color. We want just black. We just don't want it to show. I don't think there's much top stitching on this pattern. I will say this feels a little bulkier than my Husqvarna. All right, now we're ready to set our stitches. And let's see, what is it listed at? Let's just try a 3.0 and just kind of look and see what it's going to look like. And you want to make sure that the threads are looped together really nicely. I don't know if you can see that. Since it's black. And that when you kind of pull it apart a little bit, it's nice and taut. And you can play around with your tension dial just to get it the way you want it. I usually like a 3. Well, let's see, let's try a 2.5 and just kind of see what that looks like. I'll do it in a lighter spot here. Let's turn it around. And we'll try it this way. I just want to try your back stitching too, so it's not pulling it. You can kind of see I have some work to do on it because I think I need to tighten the tension. Let's try tightening it just a bit. It just seems a little loose. You kind of see the difference there. I don't know if you can really tell on the camera which one's looser, but there is one that is looser. So the 5. Okay, so I'm going to go with this one and give that a go. So play around with your tension dial and see what works for your fabric. So that's the end of part 1. We're just getting everything ready so we can start to sew in part 2. Part 2, look for sewing the pockets, sewing the pleats, and the side seam. Part 3 is finishing it up. So stay tuned, and I look forward to showing you how to make the Tania skirt. Bye!